Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Endeavour, staring at the massive structure floating in the darkness of space. It looked like someone had taken a dozen different ships and melted them together into a single impossible design. Lights flickered across its surface in colors she had never seen before. This was it, humanity's first contact with alien life, and it was bigger than anyone had imagined. "They're hailing us again, Captain," Lieutenant Park said from the communication station. His hands shook slightly as he worked the controls. Sarah took a deep breath. "Put them through." The view screen flickered to life. The creature on the other side made Sarah's brain hurt just looking at it. It seemed to be made of crystal, or maybe glass, and light moved through its body in patterns that might have been speech. A translator box beneath the image provided words in English. "Human vessel Endeavour, I am Ambassador Zelthar of the Galactic Council. We have been monitoring your species since you detonated your first atomic weapon. You have now achieved faster-than-light travel, which means we must speak." Sarah kept her face neutral, the way she had learned in the military. "Ambassador, this is Captain Sarah Chen representing the United Earth Government. We're honored to meet you." "Honor?" The translator made the words sound like Zelthar was tasting something bitter. "We shall see. Please dock with our station. We have much to discuss about your future." 3 hours later, Sarah sat in a room that felt wrong in every way. The chairs were too soft, the gravity too light, and the air smelled like flowers and copper. Across from her, Ambassador Zelthar stood with 3 other aliens. One looked like a giant bird with 4 wings. Another resembled a floating jellyfish made of light. The third was covered in fur and had too many eyes. "Captain Chen," Zelthar began, "the Galactic Council represents 47 sentient species across this region of space. We have maintained peace for 800 of your years. We have strict rules about how new species join our community." "We're listening," Sarah said carefully. The bird-like alien made a sound like wind chimes. The translator provided the words. "We have studied your species extensively. Your planet, your history, your biology. What we have found is deeply concerning." Zelthar's crystalline body shifted colors. "Your world is what we classify as a Class 3 death world, the highest danger rating. Your gravity is more than twice the galactic standard. Your planet has extreme temperature variations, violent weather, and thousands of predator species. Most worlds in the Council have perhaps 10 or 20 dangerous animals. Earth has hundreds. We've adapted to our environment," Sarah said, feeling defensive. "That makes us weak?" "No," the furry alien spoke for the first time, its many eyes blinking in sequence. "It makes you dangerous. Your species evolved as both hunter and prey. You developed endurance that lets you chase prey until it dies from exhaustion. You have forward-facing eyes like predators. Your hands can grip and throw with deadly accuracy. Your bodies produce a combat chemical you call adrenaline that increases your strength and speed when threatened." Sarah frowned. "These things make us dangerous. You have ships that can cross the galaxy. You clearly have weapons." Zelthar made a sound like breaking glass that might have been laughter. "We have technology, yes. But Captain, most Council species evolved on peaceful worlds. We developed intelligence to solve problems, not to hunt or fight. When conflicts arise, we use economic pressure, diplomatic sanctions, legal frameworks. We have not fought a real war in 600 years. "Then how do you defend yourselves?" Sarah asked. "We have an enforcement fleet," the jellyfish creature said. "It is sufficient for maintaining order among civilized species." Zelthar pulled up a holographic display. Images of humans flashed across it, soldiers in combat, athletes pushing their bodies to the limit, a woman giving birth without drugs, a man climbing a mountain with his bare hands. "Your history is 10,000 years of continuous warfare," Zelthar said. "You have killed billions of your own kind. Your entertainment glorifies violence. Your children play games about combat. You keep predatory animals as pets and form emotional bonds with them. This behavior is incomprehensible to most Council species." Sarah felt her temper rising. "So what, you brought us here to tell us we're monsters?" "We brought you here to offer you a choice," Zelthar said. "You may join the Galactic Council as a protected junior member. We will provide you with technology, medicine, and access to galactic markets. In return, you will accept strict limitations on your military capabilities. No warships above Class 2, no weapons of mass destruction, no standing army above 1 million individuals. Council observers will monitor your compliance, and if we refuse," Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer, "then you will be quarantined to your solar system. Any ship that leaves will be destroyed. No trade, no contact, no technology sharing. You will be alone. Sarah stood up, her muscles moving easily in the light gravity. She noticed all 4 aliens flinch backward. Let me make sure I understand this. You want us to give up our ability to defend ourselves and trust that you'll protect us. You want us to become children under your supervision. We want to prevent you from becoming a threat to galactic peace, the bird alien said firmly. And you think we'd agree to this? We've been independent for our entire history. We've fought and died for our freedom. You really think we'll just hand over our sovereignty? Zelthar's colors shifted to something darker. Captain Chen, you do not understand your situation. The Council has ships, resources, and technology beyond your comprehension. If you resist, we will pacify you. It will be quick and relatively painless. Your species will continue to exist, but under our guidance. Sarah felt the anger burning in her chest, but she kept her voice level. I need to communicate with my government. This isn't a decision I can make alone. You have 30 standard days, Zelthar said. We will await your answer here. I hope your leaders are wiser than you appear to be. Sarah left the meeting room and made her way back to the Endeavor. As soon as she was aboard, she called General Marcus Webb at Earth Defense Command. Webb's weathered face appeared on the screen. That bad, huh? Worse. They want us to disarm and submit, or they'll force us to comply. Webb was quiet for a moment. What do you think, Sarah? Can we fight them? Sarah thought about the massive station, the casual arrogance of the aliens, their absolute certainty that humanity would submit. I don't know if we can win, Marcus, but I know we can make them regret trying to cage us. That's what I thought you'd say, Webb replied with a grim smile. We've been preparing for this possibility since we sent out the first FTL probes. If they want to fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget. Sarah looked out at the alien station glowing in the darkness. Somewhere on that structure, Ambassador Zelthar probably thought this was already over. He thought humanity would see their ships and technology and surrender out of fear. He was wrong. Fear was something humans knew well. They had lived with it their entire existence. Every human alive was descended from ancestors who had felt fear and acted anyway, who had stared into the darkness where predators lurked and built fires to push it back, who had looked at the impossible and said, "Watch me." The Council was about to learn something important about Deathworlders. They didn't just survive because they were tough. They survived because when you backed them into a corner, they came out fighting. Sarah smiled coldly at the alien station. 30 days, she whispered. I hope you're ready. The enforcement fleet arrived on day 28. 200 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the orbit of Mars, their formation perfect and intimidating. Admiral Creven, a member of the insectoid Thax species, stood in the command center of the flagship and felt satisfied. This would be over quickly. Send the final demand, he ordered. Tell the humans they have 1 hour to signal their surrender. His communications officer, a nervous Zeltari, hesitated. Admiral, sensors show the humans have mobilized their fleet. 73 ships are moving to intercept us. Creven made a clicking sound that was Thax laughter. 73 primitive vessels against our 200 advanced warships? They must be suicidal. What Admiral Creven didn't know was that humanity had spent the last 28 days preparing for this exact moment. General Webb had pulled every ship from Earth's defense fleet and positioned them in a scattered formation that looked random, but was actually carefully calculated. He stood in the command center deep beneath Colorado, watching the tactical display. They think we'll surrender, Captain Chen said beside him. She had been given temporary rank as strategic advisor. Let them think that, Webb replied. When they're close enough, we hit them with everything. The hour passed. No surrender came. Admiral Creven gave the order to advance. The enforcement fleet moved toward Earth in their tight formation, shields glowing with protective energy. Weapons range in 30 seconds, the tactical officer announced. Prepare to fire warning shots across their formation, Creven ordered. That should convince them. At 15 seconds, the human ship suddenly accelerated. The Council officers stared in confusion as the primitive vessels pushed forward at speeds that should have been impossible for their technology. They're pulling 12 gravities of acceleration, the sensor officer said in shock. That should kill their crews. Fire, Creven shouted. The enforcement fleet's weapons lit up space with directed energy beams designed to overload shields and disable ships. They were perfect for the Council's style of warfare, which focused on minimal casualties and preserving vessels for diplomatic negotiations afterward. The beam struck the human ships. The council officers expected to see shields flare and collapse. Instead, the beams scorched armor plating and burned through outer hulls, but the human ships kept coming. "They don't have shields?" someone said in disbelief. Before Creven could respond, the human ships opened fire. Magnetic accelerators launched chunks of metal at incredible speeds. Nuclear-tipped missiles streaked across the distance. Railguns fired projectiles moving at percentages of light speed. The council had forgotten how to fight an enemy that wanted to actually destroy your ships. Rather than disable them, the first nuclear warhead detonated against the flagship's shields, and the entire vessel shook. Creven grabbed his command chair as lights flickered. "Report. Shields down to 60% from one hit." "How is that possible?" More impacts followed. The council ships tried to return fire, but their careful, precise weapons were designed for an enemy that fought the same way they did. The humans fought like they were trying to kill everyone aboard each ship, because that's exactly what they were trying to do. A human destroyer, its hull blazing with fire from multiple hits, accelerated directly at a council cruiser. The cruiser's commander fired everything he had, shredding the destroyer's armor, but the human ship didn't slow down. It crashed into the cruiser at thousands of kilometers per hour. Both ships exploded in a brilliant flash. "They're using ramming attacks." The communications officer screamed. "Who does that?" "Someone who's willing to die to take you with them," Captain Chen said quietly from Earth, watching the battle data stream in. The human pilots were doing things no council officer would dream of. They flew through debris fields at full speed. They stayed in battles even after their ships were critically damaged. They closed to point-blank range where weapons would be most effective, even though it meant they'd be hit just as hard. On the UN's Thermopylae, Commander Jackson's ship was dying around him. Half his crew was dead, life support was failing, and they had maybe 5 minutes before the reactor went critical. He could retreat, try to save his remaining crew. Instead, he pointed his ship at the largest council vessel in range and pushed the engines to maximum. "If we're going down, we're taking them with us," he shouted. The council captain saw the human ship coming and tried to move, but his vessel was too slow, designed for comfort rather than combat maneuvers. The Thermopylae struck the council ship's engineering section. The human reactor's explosion tore through both vessels. In the command center, Admiral Creven watched his fleet being torn apart by an enemy that shouldn't have stood a chance. They had lost 40 ships in 20 minutes. The humans had lost 30, but they weren't retreating. They weren't negotiating. They were fighting like creatures who had evolved, knowing that every day might be their last. "Pull back," Creven finally ordered. "Emergency jump now!" The enforcement fleet scattered, ships jumping to faster than light speed in random directions. They left behind destroyed vessels and hundreds of dead crew members. The humans had won. On the Endeavor, Captain Chen watched the council ships flee. Her crew was cheering, but she felt only exhaustion. They had won this battle, but at a terrible cost. Good people had died today. "Get rescue teams out for any survivors, ours or theirs," she ordered. "And someone get me a line to Earth. We need to prepare for their next move." Across the galaxy, the news of the battle spread like wildfire. The Galactic News Network showed footage of the engagement, and most species thought it had to be fake. Surely the primitive humans hadn't actually attacked the enforcement fleet. Surely they hadn't won. On the council homeworld, Ambassador Zelthar watched the footage with something humans would recognize as fear. He had seen the moment when that human ship rammed into the cruiser. He had seen the crew's life signs wink out as they deliberately flew into death to take their enemies with them. "They're insane," another council member whispered. "No," Zelthar said slowly. "They're survivors from a world that tried to kill them every day. We thought our technology would make the difference. We forgot that sometimes the will to fight matters more than the tools you fight with." The Council's military command convened an emergency session. Centuries of peace had made them soft, and they knew it. They had protocols for diplomatic disputes, not for an enemy that opened fire with nuclear weapons. General Vexnar, the highest-ranking military officer in the Council, reviewed the battle data for the third time. Each viewing made him more uncomfortable. "They can withstand acceleration forces that would kill most of our pilots. Their reaction times are 3 times faster than the galactic average. They kept fighting with injuries that should have incapacitated them. And their weapons, crude as they are devastatingly effective because they're designed to destroy rather than disable." "So what do we do?" someone asked. We have two choices, Vexnar said. We can commit to a full war, mobilize our entire fleet and crush them with overwhelming numbers. Or we can make peace and hope they're willing to forget what we tried to do. There's a third option, Zelthar said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. We ask for their help. Help? With what? The Krell, Zelthar said, and the room went silent. Everyone knew about the Krell, the insectoid swarm that had been eating its way through Council space for 15 years, destroying everything in its path. The Council had lost every major battle against them. Thousands of colony worlds had fallen. Millions were dead. You want to hire the humans as mercenaries? Vexnar said in disbelief. I want to admit that we need warriors, and we stopped being warriors a long time ago. The humans are what we need, whether we like it or not. The debate lasted for hours, but in the end, fear won. Fear of the Krell. And the new fear of what humanity might do if the Council pushed them into a corner. Ambassador Zelthar prepared to make a call he never thought he'd have to make. He was about to ask the species he'd threatened to enslave for help saving the galaxy. The irony wasn't lost on him. 3 weeks after the battle near Mars, Ambassador Zelthar returned to Earth. This time he came alone in a small shuttle, with no weapons and no fleet. He had requested permission to land, and surprisingly, the humans had agreed. He met General Webb and Captain Chen in a conference room in Geneva. The room was simple, with Earth's gravity pressing down on him uncomfortably. Everything about this planet felt heavy and dangerous. Ambassador, Webb said, his voice neutral. You tried to invade us, you lost. Why should we listen to anything you have to say? Zelthar's color shifted to something that his species used to show shame. Because I was wrong. Because the Council was wrong. And because we need your help. Chen leaned forward. Help with what? For the next hour, Zelthar explained the Krell situation. He showed them images of destroyed worlds, cities turned to ash, populations slaughtered. The Krell were an insectoid species from the Galactic Rim that had no interest in diplomacy or coexistence. They wanted territory and resources, and they took them by force. We've been fighting them for 15 years, Zelthar said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. We've lost every major engagement. Our weapons can't penetrate their armor effectively. Our tactics don't work against an enemy that doesn't care about casualties. They just keep coming, and we keep losing. Webb studied the data carefully. These Krell, they fight like predators. Aggressive, coordinated, willing to sacrifice individuals for the success of the group. Yes, Zelthar said. We don't understand them. We've tried negotiation, offers of territory, even tribute. They don't respond. They just attack. Chen looked at Webb. They both understood something the Council didn't. They're like army ants from Earth, she said. They're not individuals making choices. They're a collective following programmed behaviors. You can't negotiate with them because there's no one to negotiate with. Then how do you stop them? Zelthar asked desperately. You make them afraid, Webb said. You hit them so hard so fast, and so brutally that their programming says, this territory costs too much. You become a bigger predator than they are. Zelthar's crystalline body flickered with confusion. But that's barbaric. The Council doesn't fight that way. We know, Chen said quietly. That's why you're losing. Webb pulled up his own files. Before we go any further, let me show you something. This is a report compiled by our xenobiologists about why humanity developed the way we did. The holographic display showed Earth in all its deadly glory, footage of hurricanes that could level cities, earthquakes that split the ground open, temperatures that ranged from burning deserts to frozen wastelands. And everywhere predators, lions, tigers, bears, crocodiles, sharks, snakes, spiders, and thousands more. Our world tried to kill us every single day, Webb explained. We didn't develop technology because we wanted to explore. We developed it because we needed every advantage just to survive until tomorrow. Fire kept the predators away. Tools let us hunt. Weapons let us defend ourselves. We lived in constant danger, and it shaped everything about us. A new image appeared, showing human evolution. We became endurance hunters because we couldn't match other predators for speed or strength. So we learned to track prey for days, running them down until they collapsed from exhaustion. We developed throwing accuracy because we needed to kill at a distance. We learned to work in groups because alone we died. Zelthar watched in growing understanding as the presentation continued. Images of human warfare throughout history. Not just the violence, but the strategy, the innovation, the terrible efficiency of a species that had been fighting for survival since the moment it gained consciousness. Your species developed in paradise compared to ours, Chen said. You didn't need to be warriors because you had nothing to fight. When you reached for the stars, it was out of curiosity. When we reached for the stars, it was because we'd finally conquered our own world and were looking for the next challenge. There's something else, Webb said. He showed footage from the battle near Mars. Council officers flinching away from danger. Ships retreating when damaged. Crews evacuating at the first sign of serious threats. You fight to survive, Webb said. That makes sense. It's logical. But humans, we have something that probably seems insane to you. We fight even when survival is impossible. We have a saying, if I'm going down, I'm taking you with me. That commander who rammed his ship into yours? He knew he was going to die. He chose to make his death count for something. Zelthar's colors shifted through a spectrum his species associated with deep disturbance. That's what terrifies us about you. You don't just accept death, you weaponize it. Only when we have to, Chen said softly. We don't like dying, Ambassador. We don't like killing. But when you threatened our freedom, our right to exist as we choose, you triggered something very old in us. You became a predator, and we reacted the way we always have to predators. We fought back with everything we had. Webb leaned back in his chair. Now let's talk about your offer. You want our help with the Krell. What exactly are you proposing? Zelthar's colors steadied into something like hope. Full membership in the Galactic Council with no restrictions. Access to all our technology and markets. Military alliance against the Krell. And one more thing, though this was very difficult to get approved. What's that? Webb asked. Human commanders would lead the combined fleet. We've realized that we don't know how to fight a real war anymore. You do. It will be controversial and many species will object, but the alternative is extinction. Chen and Webb exchanged glances. This was more than they'd hoped for. But Webb had learned to be cautious. What guarantees do we have that once we help you beat the Krell, you won't try to eliminate us again? None that you would trust, Zelthar said honestly. We could offer treaties and contracts, but you've seen that we're willing to break our word when we're afraid. The only guarantee I can give you is this. The galaxy has seen what humanity can do when threatened. Every species in the Council is watching this negotiation. If we betray you again, they'll know that we learned nothing, and no species will ever trust the Council's word again. Our reputation is the only leverage you need. It was surprisingly honest, and Webb appreciated that. We'll need time to discuss this with our government. Of course, Zelthar said. But please hurry. The Krell destroyed another colony world yesterday. 3 million civilians dead. After the ambassador left, Webb and Chen sat in silence for a moment. Finally, Chen spoke. What do you think? I think they're desperate, Webb said. I think they finally understand that they created a system that works great for peace but fails completely in war. And I think this is our chance to make sure humanity has a place in the galaxy on our own terms. It's dangerous, Chen said. We'll be in the middle of an alien war. Our people will die. They'll die either way, Webb replied. If we say no, the Council might try to force us again, or the Krell might eventually reach us. At least this way we fight on our terms and we gain allies in the process. Chen nodded slowly. There's one more thing. If we do this, if we show them how humans make war, they're going to be terrified of us forever. Webb smiled grimly. Good, let them be scared. Fear creates respect, and respect creates peace. We'll be the guardians they need, whether they like it or not. 2 days later, Earth's government agreed to the alliance. Admiral Yuki Tanaka was chosen to command the joint fleet. She was brilliant, ruthless when necessary, and understood that in war, mercy was something you earned through strength, not weakness. As she prepared to leave Earth, she recorded a message to her family. I don't know if I'm coming back, she said quietly. But if humans are going to fight in this war, we're going to fight our way. We're going to show the galaxy what it means to be a warrior species. And maybe, just maybe, we'll teach them that the capacity for violence isn't the same as the desire for it. The next phase of humanity's journey into the stars was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Yuki Tanaka stood on the bridge of the UN's Indomitable, looking at the assembled fleet through the view screen. 50 human warships and 300 council vessels, the largest military force assembled in 600 years. It should have felt inspiring. Instead, it felt like herding cats. Admiral, her Zelthari tactical officer, Commander Zileth, approached nervously. The council captains are requesting another meeting about the battle plan. Another one? Tanaka sighed. That's the 5th time this week. What's their problem now? Zealith's crystalline form flickered with embarrassment. They're concerned about civilian casualties in the target zone. They want to delay the attack until all civilians can be evacuated. Tanaka closed her eyes and counted to 10. She'd been doing that a lot lately. The target is a Krell staging area. There are no civilians there, only Krell warriors and their support drones. We've been over this. Yes, but what if some civilians are being held prisoner? The Council protocols require verification before any attack that might harm non-combatants. The Krell don't take prisoners, Tanaka said flatly. They kill everyone and take their resources. But fine, call the meeting. Maybe this time I can make them understand how war actually works. 2 hours later, Tanaka faced 40 Council captains in the conference room. Most of them looked uncomfortable just being in the same room with her. Humans made them nervous and she knew it. Captains, she began, I understand your concerns. Civilian protection is important. But we're not fighting a civilized enemy here. The Krell are a swarm species. They don't negotiate, don't take prisoners, and don't care about your protocols. Every day we delay is another day they use to build their forces and plan their next attack. Captain Thalax, a bird-like Avirian, spoke up. But Admiral, the Council has always prioritized minimizing casualties, even enemy casualties. Surely there must be a way to disable their facilities without excessive loss of life? Tanaka pulled up a holographic display. This is footage from the last 15 battles between the Council and the Krell. Every single one you tried to disable rather than destroy. You targeted power systems, shield generators, and propulsion. You know what happened? The Krell repaired the damage in hours and came back stronger. You have to stop thinking of them as people making choices. They're a machine following programming. You can't disable a machine and expect it to give up. You have to break it. That's barbaric, someone muttered. No, Tanaka said sharply. Barbaric is letting them kill millions of civilians because you're too squeamish to do what's necessary. I've read the reports. 3 million dead on Zell Prime. 5 million on the Thaxian colonies. Entire populations wiped out while you debated the ethics of fighting back. How many more have to die before you accept that this enemy doesn't care about your civilization or your rules? The room fell silent. Zilith, who had been working with Tanaka for 3 weeks now, spoke up. She's right. I didn't want to believe it, but I've studied human military history. They've fought enemies like the Krell before. On their own world, they faced species that followed pure survival programming. The only thing that worked was overwhelming force applied precisely where it hurt most. Tanaka nodded. We're going to hit the Krell staging area at Proxima Centauri with everything we have. We're going to destroy their ships, their facilities, and their capability to threaten Council space. Some of you are going to see things that disturb you. That's fine. Be disturbed. But follow orders because lives depend on it. The Battle of Proxima Centauri began at 0600 hours. The combined fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Immediately, sensors showed 200 Krell vessels moving to intercept. All ships, this is Admiral Tanaka. Execute Phase 1. The Council ships, following human tactics for the first time, scattered in what looked like a panicked retreat. The Krell, following their programming, pursued aggressively. They'd seen Council ships run before, and they knew it meant victory. What they didn't know was that 50 human warships were waiting behind Proxima Centauri's second planet, powered down and invisible to Krell sensors. The Krell fleet spread out, chasing the fleeing Council ships. Their formation became ragged, extended, vulnerable. Tanaka watched the tactical display with cold focus. Phase 2. Hit them now. The human ships powered up and accelerated out of hiding at maximum thrust. At the same time, the Council ships stopped retreating and turned to face the enemy. The Krell suddenly found themselves surrounded. All ships weapons free, Tanaka ordered. Target their command vessels first. What happened next would be studied in military academies for generations. The human ships didn't try to disable or capture. They fired nuclear-tipped missiles, railguns, and magnetic accelerators with one goal: complete destruction. Council ships, following their new orders, did the same. On the UEN's Thermopylae II, named after the ship that had sacrificed itself in the first battle, Commander Martinez watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. Target that Krell cruiser. Full spread, everything we have. Sir, that's overkill, his weapons officer said. Good, Martinez replied. Let's make sure they understand what happens when they mess with our allies. The Krell ships tried to fight back, but they were designed to overwhelm civilized enemies who fought with restraint. Against an enemy that had learned warfare through 10,000 years of constant conflict, they were outmatched. But the most effective weapon wasn't the technology. It was something the council captains found deeply disturbing. Throughout the battle, the human ships broadcast music over open channels. Loud, aggressive, primitive music with pounding drums and screaming guitars. Songs about war and death and never surrendering. Why are they playing that noise? Captain Thalax asked in confusion. Zilith, who had studied human culture, understood. It's psychological warfare. They're showing the Krell that they're not afraid, that they're enjoying this. It's meant to intimidate. Does it work? Look at our sensors, Zilith said. 3 Krell ships just broke formation and tried to retreat. I've never seen them do that before. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the Krell staging area was completely destroyed and the enemy fleet was scattered. The human ships had taken damage, but they'd all survived. More importantly, the Krell had done something unprecedented. They had retreated. In the aftermath, Tanaka toured the fleet, checking on her ships and crews. She found Zilith in the tactical center studying battle data. You fought well today, she told him. I was terrified the entire time, Zilith admitted. Your ships flew through weapons fire like it was nothing. One of your commanders laughed after taking a direct hit. How are you not afraid? Tanaka sat down beside him. We are afraid. We just don't let it stop us. Fear is information, not a command. It tells us there's danger, but we still get to choose how we respond. That's what centuries of living on a death world taught us. Feel the fear, acknowledge it, then do what needs to be done anyway. The council finds that attitude disturbing, Zilith said quietly. I know, but let me tell you something about humans. We're terrifying in war, yes, but we're also fiercely protective of those we consider ours. 3 weeks ago, you were strangers, alien creatures we barely understood. Today, you're our allies. That means we'll fight for you the same way we'd fight for our own people, with everything we have. Zilith's crystalline form shifted colors in a way that meant deep thought. I think I'm beginning to understand why the council was so afraid of you. Not because you're violent, but because your violence comes with loyalty. You make war terrible so that your friends can live in peace. Exactly, Tanaka said. Now get some rest. We have 18 more months of this war to fight, and the Krell are going to be much more careful now that they know what we can do. Over the following months, Admiral Tanaka led the combined fleet through victory after victory. She trained council officers in human tactics, teaching them that sometimes mercy meant ending a fight quickly and decisively, rather than drawing it out. She showed them that fear was a weapon, that uncertainty was a weapon, and that the willingness to do what your enemy won't do was the greatest weapon of all. The Krell began to retreat for the first time in 15 years. World after world was liberated, and slowly, the council species began to understand something important about their new human allies. They weren't conquerors. They were guardians. Terrifying, brutal, efficient guardians who made war so terrible that enemies surrendered rather than face it. The galaxy was learning to sleep a little easier, knowing that humanity stood watch. 22 months after the Battle of Proxima Centauri, Admiral Tanaka stood in the command center of the combined fleet, staring at the holographic display of the Krell homeworld. Behind her stood representatives from 47 council species and a dozen human officers. They had fought together, bled together, and learned to trust each other. Now they faced the final decision. We have them, General Vexnar said quietly. The council's military commander had changed significantly over the past 2 years. He'd learned to think like a warrior again. The Krell fleet is destroyed. Their colonies are cut off. We could end this today. By glassing their homeworld, Captain Chen said. She'd joined the fleet 6 months ago as liaison between Earth and the Council. Is that really what we want to do? The room divided immediately. Some species argued for complete annihilation. The Krell had killed millions and shown no mercy. Others argued that genocide was never acceptable, no matter the circumstances. The debate grew heated. Tanaka listened to all of it, then held up her hand for silence. Commander Zilith, what do we know about Krell psychology? The Zelthari tactical officer, who had become Tanaka's closest advisor, pulled up his research. They're a true hive mind species. Individual Krell have minimal intelligence, but collectively, they form a distributed consciousness. They expand because that's their biological imperative, like a virus spreading. They don't hate us or choose to kill us. It's simply what they do, so they can't be reasoned with. someone asked. I didn't say that, Zillith replied. I said they can't be negotiated with like individuals. But they can learn. They're not mindless. When we started winning battles, they changed tactics. When we destroyed their staging areas, they became more cautious. They respond to environmental pressures. Tanaka studied the Krell homeworld on the display. Billions of Krell lived there, most of them workers and drones who had never seen combat. They were dangerous, yes, but they were also living beings following their nature. I want to try something, she said finally. Open a channel to the Krell homeworld. All frequencies. I want to make sure the Queen hears this. Admiral, they don't communicate through our methods, Vexnar objected. They communicate through actions, Tanaka said. So let's give them an action to understand. The channel opened. Tanaka took a deep breath and began speaking. Knowing the Krell Queen's collective consciousness would process the patterns and meaning if not the exact words. Krell Queen, this is Admiral Yuki Tanaka of the Human Council Alliance. Your fleets are destroyed. Your colonies are isolated. We have the power to eliminate your species completely, but we don't want to. We're offering you a choice. She gestured, and Zillith brought up new images. This is territory we're willing to designate as Krell space. It's resource-rich, suitable for your biology and far enough from council worlds to prevent conflict. You can expand there, grow there, exist there in peace. All we ask is that you stay within these boundaries. Admiral, you can't be serious, someone protested. They'll just rebuild and attack again. Maybe, Tanaka said. But here's the other part of the offer. She pulled up footage from the past 2 years of war. Krell ships being destroyed, colonies burning, the overwhelming force of the combined fleet. If you cross these boundaries, if you attack council worlds again, we will return. And next time we won't offer mercy. We'll finish what we started here. She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. You fought us for 2 years. You know what we're capable of. You've learned that we're better predators than you are. So here's your choice. Accept the territory we're offering and live, or refuse and die. You have 24 hours to respond. The channel closed. The command center erupted in argument. Half the council representatives thought Tanaka was being too soft. The other half thought she was being too harsh. The humans stayed quiet, trusting their admiral's judgment. Do you really think they'll accept? Chen asked privately. I think they're survivors, Tanaka replied. And survival means knowing when you've met something more dangerous than you are. We'll see. 23 hours later, the Krell fleet began withdrawing to the designated territory. No formal communication came because the Krell didn't think that way. But their actions spoke clearly. They understood the terms and were accepting them. It worked, Zillith said in amazement. You made them more afraid of fighting than of retreating. That's what deterrence is, Tanaka explained. You make the cost of aggression higher than the benefit. The Krell are pragmatic. They weighed their options and chose survival. That makes them smarter than we gave them credit for. The fleet returned to council space as heroes. Everywhere they went, population celebrated. The war that had cost millions of lives was over. And it had ended not with genocide, but with a boundary that everyone could live with. 3 months later, the Treaty of Terra was signed on Earth. Representatives from all 47 council species came to humanity's homeworld, most of them wearing special suits to handle the crushing gravity and dangerous environment. Ambassador Zelthar, who had started this entire journey by threatening humanity, stood beside Captain Chen in the hall where the treaty would be signed. I never apologized, he said quietly, for how this began, for threatening your species with enslavement. Chen looked at the ambassador. You were afraid. Fear makes people do stupid things. We know that better than anyone. You could have destroyed us after you won that first battle, Zelthar continued. You could have conquered the council while we were weak and disorganized. Why didn't you? Because that's not who we are, Chen said simply. Yes, we're warriors. Yes, we're dangerous, but we don't fight to conquer. We fight to protect. You became our allies, and that means something to humans. Once you're part of our pack, we'll fight to the death to keep you safe. Zelthar's colors shifted through a pattern that meant deep respect. I think I finally understand what makes humanity so frightening. You have the capacity for extreme violence, but you choose to direct it outward, at threats to your community. You're not warriors despite being civilized. You're warriors in service of civilization. The treaty was comprehensive. Humanity received full council membership with no restrictions. Human military academies would open throughout council space. teaching willing species how to defend themselves. Earth was designated a strategic reserve world, meaning that if galactic civilization ever faced an existential threat, humanity would be the final line of defense. And perhaps most significantly, humans were granted the title Guardians of the Rim, formally recognizing their role as the galaxy's protectors. Admiral Tanaka attended the signing, but didn't stay for the celebrations. She found herself in the gardens outside the hall, looking up at the stars. Commander Zelith found her there. "You should be inside," he said. "You're the hero of the hour." "I'm not a hero," Tanaka replied. "I'm a soldier who did what needed to be done. Heroes are the people who died so their friends could live. Heroes are the crews who kept fighting when their ships were falling apart around them. I'm just the one who survived to see it end." Zelith stood beside her in comfortable silence for a moment. "What will you do now, go home?" "Eventually," Tanaka said. "But first I need to visit the memorials. Every human who died in this war deserves to be remembered. Then I need to write letters to their families, tell them that their sacrifices mattered. That will take months. I have time." Tanaka smiled slightly. "Besides, someone needs to make sure the Council doesn't forget what they learned. Peace is maintained by strength, not hope. If we let our guard down, the next threat will catch us unprepared." 50 years later, the galaxy had transformed. The age of peace that the Council had enjoyed before had returned, but it was a different kind of peace. It wasn't the peace of species too civilized to fight. It was the peace of species who knew how to fight but chose not to. Human veterans had trained tens of thousands of Council officers in human military doctrine. Not because the Council wanted to become warriors, but because they understood that predators respected strength. The galaxy was safer because potential threats knew that behind the civilized facade, there were guardians willing to bare their teeth. Captain Maria Santos stood on the bridge of the UN's Vigilant, patrolling the Galactic Rim. She was the granddaughter of one of the soldiers who had died in the Krell War, and she took her duty seriously. Her crew was mixed, half human and half Council species, working together seamlessly. "Captain, we're detecting an unknown energy signature at the edge of our sensor range," her Thaxian sensor officer reported. "Classification?" Santos asked calmly. "Unknown. Pattern doesn't match any known species. It's big, though. Multiple vessels, possibly a fleet." Santos felt her pulse quicken but kept her voice steady. "Alert Council Command. Transmit all sensor data and send a message to Earth. Tell them we might have a new player in the galaxy." As the crew moved to action stations, Santos thought about her grandmother's stories of the Krell War, about how humanity had proven itself when it mattered most, about how they'd become the guardians the galaxy needed. If this new threat turned out to be hostile, they'd learn the same lesson the Krell had learned. The galaxy had guardians now, and those guardians had very sharp teeth.